Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for having me. And venerables, brothers and sisters, I hope I can say something meaningful today. I will actually start by saying something I didn't intend to say, which is that my doctorate is in science, but my doctorate was a study of acupuncture. And what was interesting about this study is how scientists had a lot of trouble understanding my results. Then I saw a woman who also did her doctorate in the study of acupuncture, and she used fMRI study of brains, and she came along to my colleagues and gave a presentation, and they got so excited they nearly wet themselves, I have to say. They were overwhelmed by the pictures of the brain. And from that moment I thought, I have to understand neuroscience more, and I have to, I think, challenge some of the findings of neuroscience. As other speakers have said, over the last 50 years or so, the rise in scientific research, neuroscientific research, into Buddhist-based meditation has been quite exponentially growth. Like every journal you open, there's a neuro something related to Buddhism. And the issue for me about this is that it's a very brain and neurology focused technique of study, a method of study. And it requires observation, quantification, and a mechanistic causation. So we have the fMRI, and really, if I can say it in this company, fMRI pictures are very sexy. They come up in all sorts of places, and they're beginning to be used in courtrooms and many other places. They're a very popular image with, I suspect, less than efficacious basis to it. But the study of meditation practitioners are interesting and fascinating, of course, and they've found interesting effects on the brain from meditation. All major brain lobes are involved in a meditative practice. The more you meditate, the better you are at it. They've done randomized controlled trials of using meditation practices for people who are unwell and found that it helps them. One study I found said it made significant changes for healthy individuals, which is always good that the healthy get a gig as well. The more of research studies. I don't want to spend too much time on this because it's not really what I'm talking about. But the studies are quite interesting. They used reasonably sound scientific methods. And from those studies, they can look at what parts of the brain are involved in different sorts of meditations. Meditation increases higher psychological well-being for positive and negative emotions, emotional regulation, personality traits, self-concept, self-realization, stress, and well-being. What's good about this, I guess, is that it's building bridges between Buddhism and science. Buddhists and scientists are talking to each other, and sometimes they're the same people. The benefits of individuals of meditation are becoming clearer. It's very rare to find a popular newspaper or magazine related to health that doesn't mention mindfulness or some sort of meditation. And the issues around brain plasticity being influenced by meditation are quite clear and evident. And the scientific research does, to some degree, provide a template for practice. And it promotes the idea of plasticity, which I think is a very good thing. The barriers from this exercise between neuroscience and Buddhist practice, I think, are also there. Science still has a very positivist idea, which science has truth mentality is very embedded in science. It has a very mechanistic and causal explanation of what's happening. It's reductive materialism. It depends on an idea that the mind or consciousness is located in the brain and is independent of the body. It's localised, explicit, it looks at the foreground, and like every activity, whatever we focus on, we exclude other things. So our vision is always excluding. And what we're excluding by looking at the specific is we're excluding the whole, the implicit, the background. And I think they're important. So is and should, I think I should have said, should science be a final source of authoritative knowledge? As Bill just said, that knowledge has been around in Vajrayāna practices for a very long time. What worries me about the way science is practiced in the West is that it is a colonising process. It comes to an issue, it takes the complex, makes it into something simple, and then sells it back. So it's selling an idea of Buddhism back to Buddhists. I worry about that. I think that's serious. And that reduces the vision of Buddhism. The other issue about science for me is that what science values is things that you can measure. Things that you can measure matter, and what you can't measure is excluded. So evidence becomes narrow. Life practices do not matter to the scientist. Specific defined techniques are isolated and analysed. So the embedded, embodied, social are excluded. In terms of mind even, in terms of the science understanding of the mind and intelligence, brain is only part of the story. We have lots of evidence now that the gut, the gastrointestinal system, and the microbiome, the bugs that live there, are an active part of being intelligent. The issues of cellular memory, I know that's a little bit questionable, of tacit intelligence that we embody that isn't in our brain, and the idea of collective consciousness are excluded from the neuroscientific story. Implicit within neuroscience is a Cartesian dualism, and it sets up a dichotomy between nature and culture. The cortical plasticity is one way to find non-dualistic understandings of the self that does not privilege the brain, but still uses the brain. So the idea that nature and culture are separate, we need to abandon. Some theorists are using the word nature-culture as an alternative in order to destroy the binary. And we must explore human and non-human agency and intentionality. We are radically interdependent. And not just interdependent with other people, but with our environment, with our planet, with our other sentient animals. There is a huge amount of research now on plants and their capacity to relate to us and to each other. So I would like to, in a way, argue against neuroscience as a key tool for Buddhists, because the brain does not equal consciousness. Nature culture is a synthesis of nature and culture, biophysically and socially formed. So if we reduce our view through science to the mechanisms of the brain, we risk reducing our lives and our understandings of the possibilities facing us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.